your dream restaurant could grow from your own dining room into a James Beard semifinalist without wasting years or burning through cash. That's exactly what Tal Blevins did, and he's here today sharing how. Welcome back to the Restaurant Incubator, where I help you save time and money with your restaurant project. My name is Brandon Sharp. I'm the host here at the Restaurant Incubator. As an executive chef, I earned 7 Michelin stars. Now I own 3 restaurants here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So today's guest is the perfect example of why we do this show. Tal Blevins didn't come from a traditional hospitality background. He was a tech and gaming executive who built a career at IGN before deciding to chase a dream in food. But instead of jumping straight into a lease, burning capital, buying equipment, all those costly mistakes, he started small with proof of concept, hosting pop-ups out of his own home, learning the ropes, testing ideas, and building a community, one diner and one dinner at a time. And so after helping found the legendary Supper Club, Michelin-starred Lazy Bear in San Francisco, the grassroots approach of hosting pop-ups turned into Machete. That's in Greensboro, North Carolina, also my hometown. And so that's a restaurant that has already been recognized as a James Beard semifinalist, numerous Rising Star, best of new restaurant awards. And so Tal knows firsthand what it means to bootstrap a concept, avoid costly missteps, and grow something sustainable from the ground up. If you're dreaming about your own restaurant but don't know where to start, Tal's journey is a masterclass in doing it smarter, not just harder. Welcome back to the Restaurant Incubator. We have a real restaurateur, as evidenced by the quart container of water that he is drinking out of on the show today. Please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you work.
Hey, I am Tal Blevins, and I am the owner of Machete and Yokai Restaurants in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Excellent. Tal, thanks so much for being on the show today. I want to start going all the way back to San Francisco and a beloved, storied, Michelin-starred, unique concept of a restaurant that you were an early backer in called Lazy Bear.
Yeah.
And so if you could, can you take us through like the home dinners, the pop-ups, the proof of concept stuff that y'all did all the way to the fully realized? I mean, that is a unique restaurant setup.
Sure. Yeah, I grew up here in Greensboro, but I went out to San Francisco in the mid '90s to work in as a tech journalist for 20 years. Definitely got spoiled by a lot of that Bay Area food scene, which you know pretty well as well. One of the things like around 2008, 2010 timeline, a lot of pop-ups were happening in the city, right? So pop-ups were basically like people who were either trained chefs or some not trained chefs at all who would have dinner parties at their place because it's so expensive to open up a restaurant, right? So they kind of wanted to try their concept and get their food out there to people to see what the reception would be. So one time I remember my mom was visiting from North Carolina, and she was coming out for around Christmas time, and I wanted to take her to a new unique dinner. And I looked on Yelp at the time, saying, hey, what's around this neighborhood? And there was a place that popped up on the map that said Lazy Bear. And I was like, well, I know this neighborhood really well. There's no restaurant named Lazy Bear there. And I see it just had amazing reviews, right? So I was like, okay, well, let's try to, let's check it out. And I read a little bit about it, and it was a pop-up done by this guy, David Barzilay, the chef, who was actually a trained lawyer, wasn't a trained chef at all. But after reading the reviews, was really interested in the concept. So we decided to sign up for tickets, got in the first time, which is kind of surprising. And it was just a dinner party set up it was 40 people in what used to be Chicken John's. I'm not sure how familiar you are actually with the San Francisco, the city itself. But Chicken John's was kind of an art space, a performance space kind of place that he had set up dinner parties in, that David had set up dinner parties in. So we ended up going and just having a wonderful time, right? The community was very, it was very vibrant. It was very interactive. You would bring your own wine. Everybody would talk to one another. It was just an interesting experiment in communal dining and also just amazing food at the time. So that was kind of my introduction to it. And then I got to be friends with David because David said, it was a lottery system to get in. And like I said, I was surprised that we got in the first time. And so I said that to him at the end of the meal because you got to, kind of interact with the kitchen and the staff. And he said, well, actually, you know what? I'm a big, and I was in tech and video game journalism. So like, I'm a big gamer. And I was kind of looking through the list of who signed up, and I was doing a little research on people. And your name came up as a video game journalist. And like, he's like, I wanted to talk to you about video games because I haven't been able to play doing like all this pop-up stuff. So it was kind of funny how my tech journalism background kind of fit into that as well, too. But then we became friends. And so when I moved back to Greensboro, after my tech journalism days, I was kind of thinking, hey, what's next? I always had a dream in my head of opening up a restaurant. And so decided to do that, but to kind of test the waters with a chef buddy of mine that I had met here, Kevin Cottrell, who's our chef at Machete now. I said, hey, why don't we kind of take that model of that home-based pop-up and let's see how that works here, right? It's a great way to test the waters. It's a great way to see like who's actually interested in your food. It's a great way to see how word of mouth can spread without having to invest hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, if not over $1 million, opening up a restaurant, right? So yeah, that's just kind of how we started back in 2018.
Got it. Well, I remember right around the time we were opening Hawthorne and Wood, you and Kevin, and I think Lydia came down and we met and looked around and, and then like I had no idea what level of avant-garde food that y'all were planning and that you got into. So tell me about like, how was the reception of that level of food and that style of food in Greensboro? And also, I mean, I don't think anybody in Greensboro, at the very least, is playing in the same sport as y'all when it comes to that type of food. So when you and Kevin talk about it, who is your comp set in y'all's head? Like anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world?
I mean, honestly, I would say, we really look to folks like Lazy Bear, like some of those, like Quince, like some of those, chefs, I don't know, smaller plates, very well composed, like art on a plate, basically. So you really start eating with your eyes before you start eating with your taste buds. So just an idea of taking a modern American approach, which basically to me means we can do whatever the hell we want to do, right? You can pull from anything, right? It always confuses people when they're like, what kind of food are you? And you're like, well, we're kind of modern American, which just means that we pull ingredients from different cultures. We pull ingredients from different regions. We do have a lot of Southern-based stuff in what we do still, like a lot of roots. But Chef loves to explore, South American flavors. He loves to explore Asian flavors. So, for us, like those kinds of, places were really like the modern elevated places. I had a chance to go, to Anna Ross's restaurant in Slovenia this past, holiday season. So those kinds of things, like going to see just fantastic restaurants around the world, Michelin starred restaurants, really inspired us. And yeah, I would say, that's one of the reasons that we wanted to do a supper club first, right? Is to really see, hey, does Greensboro, like I know the food is fantastic. People have complimented us, the few people who have tried it before. Is there a market for it here, though, right? Because you're right, Greensboro is not really known as a culinary destination like something like a Triangle area or a Charlotte area, or certainly something like New York or Chicago or LA or San Francisco, right? In the States. So that was really our impetus for doing it. And I'll tell you what, we started out with 12 people just in literally where I'm sitting right now in our dining room at the house. So we had a table in the dining room and we had a table in our living room. So we had about 12 people in here. And then the next time we did it, because other people asked, and it was really just friends and family at that point. It was a lot of local restaurateurs that I had gotten to be friends with as we were, talking about the restaurant concept and asking them questions about what we should be thinking about, kind of just like we're doing here. So they came, and then word of mouth started spreading because we were going to do these once a month. So we did 20 the next time. And then we had even more people asking. So we have a large kind of what we call the community room. So I use it for like a music studio as well as like an art space and things like that. So we ended up going to a consignment shop, getting a bunch of dining room tables and putting about 3 dining room tables in there. So we went up to 20 seatings twice a month. So it was 40 people. But even then, as we started doing more and more, we were having like 240, 260 people asking for tickets to get in, right? Because again, we kind of did a lottery system. We would have people email us kind of, drew it out of a hat kind of thing. And that's when we kind of knew that, like, okay, we got something here. Like, it seems like there is a market here. People in Greensboro, would say, like, hey, we don't have anything like this in Greensboro, and we really have been wanting something like this, right?
Awesome.
So yeah, and that's what we hear, especially as you've seen too recently with a lot of the move from the larger cities to the mid-sized cities since COVID. We're really seeing a lot of people from Greensboro who have moved here from LA, from Atlanta, from Chicago, and are like, hey, your restaurant would have fit right in with my old neighborhood kind of vibe as well too.
That's killer. That's amazing to hear about a Greensboro restaurant. I love it. Well, I always am getting I'm urging our servers to find a balance between educating the guests and making them feel smart. And so, there are a few outre ingredients on the Hawthorne and Wood menu, not a ton, but then looking at the Machete menu, there's a lot of stuff on there that I think a lot of people have not heard of before. So what is y'all's message to the staff when it comes to achieving that balance of making them feel welcome, making them feel smart, Southern hospitality, but also, educating them and making them feel comfortable with the new ingredients?
You absolutely nailed it, Brandon, because that is something we talked about a lot before we opened up. We always talked about how we wanted to introduce people to new things and kind of take them a little bit on a journey and tell a story with the ingredients that we're using, but also not make people feel like they're lesser, not make people feel like they're, in a place that they don't belong. We wanted to be welcoming. And we wanted to draw people in, but then we also wanted to be able to go, hey, here's something new. So, a big part of that is our menu is intentionally vague, right? So we will list maybe 3. We're not going to give you a whole, this, cut of meat has been braised for 3 hours with, in a quail stock kind of thing, right? We're not going to give you a big long description. We're going to tell you, like, maybe 4 ingredients.
Yeah.
So that may be, say a short rib, gochujang, broth, or stock, those kinds of things. And then the servers really do tell a story. So our servers have to be really well trained on our dishes, because they'll take you through, and it's not going to be like a long, boring story, but they give you a little sense of what this is to pique your interest. And, we always hear from guests, they love that kind of experience, because we're not a white tablecloth experience. We're very much a laid back kind of casual experience. We want people to, come dressed however you want. You can wear t-shirts and shorts. You can get dressed to the nines, whatever you want to do, because we're going to kind of tailor the experience to you as well, too. So our servers can take you through wine pairings. You can come in and just say, hey, I'm in your hands. You take me through a whole meal if you want to, right? That's how we train our servers. But we intentionally find people who are passionate about what we do, and then who can translate that into, it's almost like theater. I mean, I really do feel like running a restaurant a lot of times is like having a show every single night. But again, in a show, you got to get people in, you got to make it welcoming, but then, like, people got to have fun with it, right? So that was a lot of, these are the kinds of things that we talk about with our servers, when they come in. Now, I'll tell you what, too, I knew we had nailed it, and this was in the second week of service. I mean, we opened up right before COVID, so that's a whole different story. Maybe we'll get to that in a bit. But in the second week of service, we had this really large dude, probably about 400 pounds, in overalls. Right, he was sitting there in our lounge, and I just went up to him and I was like, "Hey, sir, how's your experience been so far?" And he's like, "Man, I am just a redneck from Kernersville, but this is the best damn meal I've ever had." And I knew at that point, I was like, we nailed it. We nailed exactly what we were going for. Because again, like that's something that he had never really experienced before, but he was loving it, loving every single thing about it. So
that's fantastic. I love it. Well, so back to the pre-opening, when you went from the proof of concept, so those, that's extremely affirming for y'all. You're selling out 2 40-person dinners per month. Is that right? So, but when you went from the pop-ups to brick and mortar, just for the listeners who are developing their own concepts, what were you started writing checks for for equipment and things like that, what were some of the biggest surprises going from pop-up to brick and mortar?
Oh, Writing checks for when you're opening a restaurant is a nonstop process.
Yeah.
I'd say some of the biggest things is obviously the cost, right? Like, I had already planned. I'd worked in the corporate world for 20 years. I had run P&L, so I had a little background there already on that. So I, of course, had a nice emergency fund going into it. Opening up any business is going to be, new business is going to be a risk. So you want to make sure you don't peter out halfway through the opening process.
Yeah.
So, just being able to ensure that you have enough of a base to draw upon in an emergency, because costs always go up from your initial, your initial layout, right? You do a whole projection sheet, and you can try to be, as detailed as possible, but things are always going to pop up.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, during that process, it really was being able to try and do, since we weren't doing the dinner parties during that time as well, too, it's just keeping up the chatter. Social media was a big part of that, right? What we had done specifically, too, with the dinners is we had all those emails and stuff. We had created an email list of people who were interested in what we did. So even those people who weren't able to either A, get into the dinners, or B, just it didn't work out for them, like whatever, or people who had come to the dinners already, too, and were interested in what we're doing, we had them on a mailing list, and we were telling them about our process, right? So continuing that story, telling the story has always been a big part of what we do. Again, I think that probably comes from my journalism background, my media background. So, keeping the, just like we do at the restaurant every single day, keeping them involved in the story and what we're doing is a very big part of what we do at Machete. And I would say really the third thing for us is, you were going to hit things with, opening up restaurants. You have to go through a lot of permitting. You have to go through a lot of, different governmental departments and things like that popping up with, say, the health department, where it's like, okay, we were lucky enough to take over an existing space that had just been built out 5 years before. So we didn't have to do a lot of construction, but health department came in and said, hey, you need to change this and this and this and this. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, well, why did you approve this 5 years ago if these are all still, like, it seemed weird. We've talked about this before, the Guilford County obsession with sinks. They wanted us to put in more sinks. Even though you have a sink 20 feet away, they wanted a sink that was 10 feet away. And it was a lot of things. So we kind of had to figure, okay, we got to figure out how to kind of reconfigure the kitchen a little bit. We got to get plumbers in here now, which we weren't expecting. We had to retile the kitchen because, they wanted a different flooring surface. And it's like, okay, why was this okay 5 years ago?
Really?
You always assume taking over an existing restaurant, okay, we're going to be pretty cool with the health department because you guys have been, getting rated for all this time, but there's always upgrades to be done. So we did all that. Now, I will say our timeline was kind of crazy, Brandon. So I really wanted to get, another thing is you want to get your restaurant open as fast as you possibly can so you can start making money. Right? Revenue coming in. That's a very important part of the process because there's so much money going out in the beginning of it. So we took over that lease in January 1st, 2020. And I remember saying, like, oh man, I'd love to be open. Because again, coming in, we didn't think we had to do a whole lot of construction stuff, right? For us, it was probably mainly decor, getting all, it even had the existing equipment in it, even though we got rid of a lot of the equipment, because restaurants are, you're a little bit different in what you want to use. We had to get stuff like we had to get some stuff very specific to what we were doing though, too. Right. But I said, I'd love to maybe think about possibly being open by Valentine's Day. So you're talking 6 weeks, right?
Whoa.
So this is my
Warp
aggressive
speed.
Yeah, this is my aggressive, timeline. Again, I worked in journalism. You got to be, you got to be like that
deadlines.
in journalism. Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you what, health department just laughed at me. They said, there's no way you guys are going to be open that quick. And they were right. It was 7 weeks. We were 1 week off. So we opened up that week after Valentine's Day, and we had like 2 weeks of soft service and then 1 week of full service. And then COVID kind of shut everything down for service. But yeah, set aggressive timelines and yeah, that was a big part of it too, right? Like you always got to, I don't know, you don't want to be lackadaisical. And we had a great starting team that was willing to put in the hours to really get it done. I mean, a lot of the stuff, like even retiling the kitchen, like we did ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I want to hear about your tactics during COVID. But before that, since we're talking about that opening transition, to take an acronym or a term from the software world of MVP, of minimum viable product, how did you balance thinking about minimum viable product versus I want to have it perfect before anybody walks in the door? What were some trade-offs that you made that, okay, this is going to be on a post-opening punch list that the contractor is going to come back and do before we open during the day? How did you balance that trade-off?
Oh my God, you keep nailing it, because I'm sure the staff all hated me because I would use the minimum viable product all the freaking time. Yeah, I think we're again showing our Bay Area time there. But yeah, I mean, I use that exact language and I use that exact thing. It's like, hey, what I wanted to do every single process that we possibly could. So construction, for example, let's get the bar up to this standard. Here's where we want to be, but let's not put anything in or do anything that's going to keep us from wanting to be up here, right? So here's our final version that we want to be. Here's where we can go, or what we can afford, or what we think is right for now. So really talked about that minimum viable product. This will look great for now, but it's not going to preclude us from anything here. We're not going to have to tear anything out from what our actual vision is. That's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars more. So let's get some revenue in first. So you're exactly right. That's a lot of how we thought about it. You can have, or I shouldn't say you can, go ahead, have a grand vision for what you want to do. But have your steps to be able to get to that vision as well, without having to necessarily tear everything out and restart to get to that vision. So we're very incremental in what we did. And yeah, that's, it works very well. And it's really a cost saver in the end. And it allows you to, if you do a little bit over time, it makes it look like you're always giving your restaurant a facelift a lot too. So that brings more people in too.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's a great strategy. Well, tell us about, so 2 weeks of soft opening, 1 week of service, March 16th or 17th, 2020, everything shuts down.
Yeah.
Tactically, what did you tell the team, and what did y'all do to keep the cash flow going?
Yeah, look, I'll tell you this too. The team was so good during that time, and they kind of saw it too. The big point for us was it was the weekend of the ACC tournament, which used to happen here in Greensboro.
Mm-hmm.
Big tournament town. It was the week of the ACC tournament, and they had, I think it was the second day. The second day, they said, okay, no more spectators at the ACC tournament, even though nobody had said anything about anything else yet, right? Mm-hmm. And we were like, whoa, that is a big, something's going on that we're not hearing the full story about, right?
Yeah.
So literally, even though we were closed on Mondays, I was like, we need to have an emergency meeting on Monday. Because we were like, what does this mean for us as a restaurant? Like, if they start closing down, if they're not allowing audiences in sporting events and spectators in sporting events, that's probably going to translate to other public spaces, right? So what does that look like for us as a restaurant if we have to go takeout only, right? And kind of like we were talking about before, we are very much art on the plate. And I'll say it with no shame, we're tweezer food. We build our plates. We want it to look very pretty when it comes out. That doesn't translate well into a cardboard box, into a bag to your home.
Yeah.
So we just kind of sat down, and within 24 hours, we had a whole new menu. It's amazing that. Well, I mean, again, those aggressive timelines, right? We're used to kind of working on those timelines.
Yeah.
But we had a whole new menu, and basically wrapped around the concept is, hey, if I were stuck at home, again, it was just very smart of the team to think about what the ramifications might be, even though the announcement wasn't made yet. But if you were stuck at home, what's the kind of comfort food, the higher end comfort food that you might like to have? So we came up with stuff like, braised short ribs over polenta. We had an awesome double fried chicken sandwich, just good comforting foods like that. A good, a pasta bake. Good comforting foods like that. Cinnamon rolls were huge for us on Sundays because we would do a Sunday brunch cinnamon roll thing, and that really popped off. But yeah, chef and team, they had a whole new menu worked out within 24 hours. We also were smart because we didn't really have a lot of takeout containers. Because again, we if you have some leftovers, we had enough to maybe give leftovers, but we weren't a takeout restaurant.
Yeah.
So we ended up ordering as much as we possibly could. We just, we said, okay, if this doesn't happen, if there isn't a big change, all it's going to cost us is, okay, we're going to have like 5 years of takeout packages then in the restaurant.
Yeah.
So whatever, better be safe than sorry. And thank God we did, because within 72 hours, you couldn't find them anywhere. You couldn't find, we couldn't even find gloves.
Yeah.
It was crazy around that time. So again, I owe a lot of our success to the team really thinking about the proper steps as to what might happen, and then being able to have not only a plan B, but a plan C, and maybe even a D as well too. Because just trying to think of all the possibilities. And that was amazing from, again, such a brand new team working together, and such a small team at that point. I will say too, one thing that kind of worked to our advantage, because obviously you had to, we kind of had to furlough some people. Now we were able to bring people back later, but we already kind of had a small, scrappy team as we were opening it up too. So, we were able to kind of keep a lot of the small, scrappy team, but also because of the pop-ups and because of all that word of mouth that we had done, and because of the social media, and because we had built that up before, we already had a built-in audience, and that completely saved us.
Wow.
People were very, they were very supportive during that time, I guess is the best way to put it. So, our takeout business was good, and it was sustainable for the number of employees. I think we retained about 6 employees during that time, which obviously you're not running a full service restaurant on 6 employees. But takeout, we were able to do it. And another big thing, for better or for worse, in this is that we happened to be I was doing so many news interviews at the time, because we were the last restaurant in Greensboro and in the Triad area in general, I think, to open up before COVID. So we were kind of the litmus test, right? Because they would come to us, they came to us when that happened, like, oh, how are you planning for this? And you just opened. And then like during COVID, oh, how are you guys doing? And so we ended up getting a lot of media from that, just simply because we were the last ones out there.
Nice. Yeah. And a lot of people were, looking at screens, not doing much else then too.
That is true.
Several owners and chefs that I've talked to on the podcast, we've talked about what they went through during COVID. And one other little theme that seems to have happened is that some of these owners and chefs in the background during COVID, they were able to recalibrate certain systems or certain parts of their concepts or anything like that. And so, y'all had, as we said, kind of 2 soft weeks, 1 full week of business, and all the pop-ups. Was there any recalibration or rethinking that went on behind the scenes during COVID?
Yeah, I won't call it an advantage, but absolutely, when things slowed down a little bit, you're actually able to. We're able to look back on those 3 weeks of service and be able to change flows or change systems. We actually changed our POS system during that time, because we were using like some older system like Aloha, or like one of those, systems that was a little bit more database driven, in my opinion. Like it felt like an old terminal system. And during that time, we upgraded to Square, because that helped us a lot more with online stuff as well too. So just having to do more online and online takeout. We're on Toast now, which is, to me, Square and Toast are 6 of one, half dozen of the other. They're very similar, but they are built a lot more for a modern, takeout, those kinds of things. And that system really worked well for us during that time as well too. So I think that was probably our biggest. We were able to kind of think about. You're always kind of early on changing the line around, seeing what's most efficient, seeing which we were kind of able to do. But then again, like switching up the menu completely, and we change our menu seasonally as well too. There were some incremental things in there too, but I do think like the technology was a big thing for us, because the way the restaurant had to change kind of forced it.
Yeah. We were and still are on Square, and that was definitely it's so easy to toggle over to take out with the full menu with Square. So that was a big help to us as well.
Absolutely.
Well, you said not to put words in your mouth, but you said with American food, with the approach that y'all have, kind of almost all ingredients are on the table, and you can explore a lot of different directions. So I have 2 questions about that. One, can you think of a dish that you and Chef thought was just killer, but that didn't land with the public? So that's the first one.
Absolutely. Look, it's I can think of one specifically right now in my head just popped in because it was one of the most divisive dishes we've ever done, but it was also one of my favorites. And of course, Chef loved it because it was his concept. It was a pickled mackerel dish. This is a very early dish. I think it was either on the first menu or the very first menu or the first menu after we were allowed to open up for in-house dining again. Anyway, it was a pickled mackerel dish with sea beans and dashi, and honestly, like it smelled and tasted like a tidal pool, which I love. Japanese cuisine is probably one of my favorite cuisines. I love seafood, so if you have something, if seafood tastes like seafood, that's what I want, right? Some people, they're like, oh, I like fish, but I don't like it if it's fishy. And it's like, well, I mean, it's fish, right? Like, it's still good. It's still good. But yeah, this dish, like the sea beans were arranged in a way where it kind of looked like seaweed swishing. You know, it was just a beautiful laid out dish. But it was, you know, it was sour and it was briny and it was, you know, and already, you know, mackerel is going to be like an oilier fish. So you're going to get more of a bold flavor out of it. And I love bold flavors. And I thought that dish was just exemplified kind of what we were trying to go for at Machete to, again, really introduce you to something new. Not a lot of people around here are eating sea beans. For people who don't know what sea beans are, they're vegetables that are in the ocean, right? I think they're actually like a tropical tree root. Or maybe a type of seaweed. Anyway, they're nice and crunchy. They're salty. They're delicious. But some people who came in were like, "Oh man, I've never had anything like this. This is wonderful." Some people were like, "Oh my god, I hated this. Can you comp this off my bill, please?" But you know, you're going to hit with the concepts like we do, and we really try to be on our regular menus. We try to be, you know, elevated, but again, also super approachable to everything that we do. We still do chef's tasting experiences. So about every other month, every 6 to 8 weeks, we have a new theme, which is very much like our pop-up days, right? So with those, it's usually about an 8-course that we do. And well, I mean, 5-course, but multiple courses within some courses, just to clarify. But those we will have a few dishes in there that are a little bit more avant-garde. So, for example, we just did our breakfast for dinner meal this week, literally. So last night we did a 2-night engagement, Wednesday and Thursday, and we had one dish on there that was called shrimp ar grits, not shrimp and grits, shrimp ar grits. And what chef did was dehydrated some shrimp, rehydrated them in almost like a risotto style presentation in like a shrimp broth. And man, I had it. And again, I think it's kind of the same experience that we had with the mackerel. It's a pretty divisive dish, but it was pretty out there as well, too. I loved it. I mean, it's very shrimpy. You know, you're getting that deep shrimp flavor from the shrimp shells and the broth. And, you know, it smells like the ocean. And some people are like, oh, this is just, you know, it's too overpowering or too oceany or too briny for me. And then other people are like, this is amazing. So those kinds of dishes, we like to take a little more risks when we do the chef's tasting menu, at least in a couple of dishes, just to kind of throw them out there. And then that might inspire some other dishes for us down the road in the seasonal menus as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's funny how tastes differ. I remember going from the French Laundry where there's a red mullet dish. It's the one that's in the French Laundry cookbook. And then going to Restaurant August in New Orleans, and we had a kitchen table that we would put in there, and the owner would sit there, and sometimes we would cook for him. And I made him mullet one night, and he got mad at me because he said I was serving him bait. So it's like there's a different opinion of the quality of the fish.
We had an amazing halibut dish on the menu, probably maybe three menus ago. But anyway, it was served in a Japanese dashi, and dashi is fishy, right? It's smoky, it's fishy. And the people who, you know, some people got it and they were like, oh, the fish is off. And it's like, that, okay. So you're just not familiar with dashi. It's fine. Like, it's not to your taste. That's fine. We're not going to try to argue. We're not going to try to tell you that you're going to like this, right?
Yeah.
That's not what you should do at all. But, you know, other people are going to love those stronger flavors. So again, I think we try to get around that a little bit too, is just having the servers really, when we start seeing that pattern happen, the servers just explain it extra hard about like, hey, just want to make sure this is made with a Japanese dashi, which is a smoked bonito flake from bonito tuna, and it's going to be the smell of the sea, and it's going to be the fish is impeccably fresh, delicious. But you're going to get some bolder smells and bolder flavors out. Well, actually, dashi is not really a bold flavor, but a bold smell, right? So, yeah, just to prepare people and make sure that they're still going to like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. The phrase that I always end up using is "let's manage their expectations." So
that's exactly right.
Well, my other question about the scope of the menu and the approach of the menu was: does the beverage program have a similar approach, or does it have a more restricted point of view?
No, absolutely. We always say, our restaurant is like a three-legged stool. You got it. Your food has to be great. Your beverage program has to be great, and your service has to be great, right? We really, to support what we're doing, everything has to support one another. So our beverage program is just as interesting and just as much of a focus for us as our food program is, and it's just as seasonal as well, too. So we'll change every single season. One thing that I really appreciate about what MJ, our beverage director, does is that, very much not only a culinary style, but very much great at creating savory cocktails as well, too. Not a lot. So many people in the cocktail world lean toward a sweet cocktail, right?
Yeah.
Or a tiki style cocktail. And we've really done some interesting things with balsamic vinegar, done some things with tomatillo, sour ingredients that they're fantastic on their own, but then combined with certain dishes on the seasonal menus too, just freaking pop. And I bring up the tomatillo because, again, just to go back to the dinner that we had this week, one of my favorite cocktail combinations was with that shrimp au grits dish. And MJ had done, it was basically a salsa verde in a drink form, kind of a salsa verde margarita, done with tomatillo and lime. And when I had the first sip, I was like, oh man, this is like super savory. Like, I'm not sure how this is going to match. And then mind totally blown when having it with a bite of the shrimp au grits. It just, bam. I mean, it all was just like so sensory perfect, right? Everything fit together. And it was like, okay, this is why we do this, right? To be able to, like, even as many flavors as I had and combinations that I've had, it blew my mind. So, so yeah, I'm really happy when I get surprised at things too.
That level of cocktail building just seems like sorcery or alchemy to me. Like my knowledge and understanding of how to build a drink is very simple, and it's kind of like my knowledge of building desserts. I feel like I'm working with a very limited list of ingredients. When your mixologists and also maybe Chef Kevin, when they talk about this and when they talk about especially pairing these inventions of theirs, are they able to put it into words, or is it just, or does it work for them on some level that they can't explain? Because it's incredible to me.
I mean, look, you worked at French Laundry. You know how it is when you it's a lot about technique as well too. One of the drinks we did for the supper club as well came out with this. I don't know. It's a foam that's almost like a pudding. So it's using like agar agar and xanthan gums and things like that, right? Like it's almost like molecular gastronomy, but with I shouldn't say it's almost, it is. I mean, it's what molecular gastronomy is, but to cocktails as well too. So really, it's about. So yes, MJ can absolutely describe everything that she's doing. I mean, a lot of it is experimenting, though, just like with anything, right? Like you get an idea in your head. And the first time, okay, maybe it's not great. The second time, okay, maybe it's getting there. The third time, maybe it's even worse than the first time. Fourth time, oh man, it's finally clicking. The fifth time, you're refining, right? So it's iteration. I mean, we'll see the same thing in our dishes too, even when they roll out for that first week. When you have them on the first week, they're fantastic. When you have them on their fifth week, they may be plated slightly different. There may be a slightly different ingredient ratio. They may be doing like a sauce slightly different to get the texture a little bit, something that's a little bit different than what you had in week one. I always love too comparing week one with like week 12. where, it's like, okay, now this is perfect. Let's do something completely different, right?
Yeah.
That's the fun thing about a seasonal menu is like, now that we've gotten it, I'm dating myself here, but it kind of reminds me of Brewster's Millions, if you've ever seen that movie.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, where the designer comes in and he's like, this is perfect, get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's how, once you reach that level, you're like, okay, now let's try something new. That's the fun part of it to me too, is like really, doing something brand new every single time. And it doesn't get stale, and it becomes like, you kind of get a little nervous in your stomach too, because you're like, oh man, is it going to work this time? And I mean, lo and behold, it has so far. So
well, the first sous chef at Hawthorne and Wood, John Navarre, I remember we'd come up with a dish, we'd change the menu, and I would take a day off and I'd come back and they'd be plating it differently. And I'd ask it. His line to me was always, "Oh, chef, the dish is still evolving," So that was my first iteration of plating a dish is never the final version. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it needs work, but it's never the final.
Well, even on our supper clubs, when we do 2 nights, if you go the first night, sometimes the second night, the plating will be completely different because chef is like, I wasn't super happy with that, that plating. And so they'll change it up. So, look, food should be about fun and should be about evolving. And like I said, we kind of view it as art as well, too. And especially like when you bring out a plate, like it's, I want guests too who came in the first couple of weeks of the menu to be surprised if they're coming in, on week 8, 9, 10 and have something that's a little bit different, because then they can go, oh man, I get to see the evolution, right? So it's fun for them too.
Yeah. Cool. Well, last question. I want to ask about your staff. So we've talked about the level of knowledge that they need to have, which is incredibly extensive. And we've talked about the delicate approach they have to take to the guests' table side because of, how complex and esoteric your menu is. But I want to ask, if I were to have one of your employees on the podcast and ask them to describe the culture at Machete, how would they describe it?
Passion.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, the most important thing, the interview process. I hate the interview process. Interviewing is the worst freaking thing, in my opinion. Because you're never really going to know how somebody works until you work with them. Right. That's always been, my takeaway throughout all my years is like, okay, some people are great at interviews and maybe not be, great on a day-to-day basis. Some people are horrible at interviews and are amazing on a day-to-day basis, right? Yeah. So interviews are a difficult format. For me, the thing that I test for the most in an interview, or at least look for, is excitement and passion, because those are things, and motivation, because you cannot teach those. Right. You can always teach somebody a cooking technique. You can always teach somebody, about a new ingredient they've never heard of. You can always teach somebody a steps of service. Mm-hmm. You can't teach somebody to be interested in what you're doing. Even our dishwashers are interested in what we're doing. And I'm not saying that as a cut to dishwashers, because as you well know, dishwashers are one of the most important positions in any restaurant. Yeah. Whenever we're, our dishwashers either out, or if we're like in the middle of dishwashers, everybody's unhappy, because dishwashers are like they're what keep the restaurant together. Yeah. Anyway, we have dishwashers that really love what Machete do as well too. So I love that about our entire team, because I feel like, especially with a restaurant like Machete, if you're not interested in the concept and what's going on there, you have to have that knowledge, right? Or you have to put the time into those knowledge. I mean, our servers make study cards so they can go over each dish and make sure that they're nailing everything, right? Mm-hmm. For all the techniques, in the back of house, it's a lot harder to work in, say, something like a Machete or your, Hawthorne and Wood or French Laundry than it is to, say, work at like a Chili's or a Bennigan's, right? Like, no cut on those; they're fine, but like it's just a different level. It's a different, type of service. So if you're not passionate about it, chances are, you're probably going to go work somewhere where it's not as taxing isn't the right word, but like there's a larger base that you have to hold when you're working at a place like that.
So when you are sitting across because clearly you are not sitting across from a candidate saying, are you passionate, interested in the food that we're doing, and motivated? You're not asking them yes or no questions. What questions are you asking to tease out those qualities that you're looking for?
A lot of the things that I personally look for, well, one thing I always love is when people actually, first off, before the interview process even starts, if they come to us with a resume unsolicited, right?
Okay.
So if somebody comes in and goes, "Hey, I'm new to the area," and that's another thing that we've gotten a lot too,
Yeah.
is that people who have moved from larger venues or larger cities. Who have worked in the service industry have sought us out because, again, like you said, there's not a lot of places like Machete around here. But when they come and they drop their resume off and say, "Hey, I had a dinner here a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely love this, and they're reciting back the things that we did already. Then I can tell, okay, you're already invested in what we're doing here, and you get it, at least to some extent, right? I will say this: another thing that we test for is that we don't always necessarily. Greensboro is a very corporate restaurant town, so there are some places where. If people on their resume, and I hate this phrase, well, that's not how we did it at the last place I worked. That's not how we did it at the last place. If they say that, we already have to like retrain people a lot of times because I don't like that corporate way of training. Because we want to be storytellers. We want to be very authentic with what we do too. A lot of times that corporate training is very robotic, as you well know. Like it's very much like a step, and they almost want you to lose your personality. And like everybody is exactly the same. Whereas we do the opposite. We want to enhance people's personalities with what we do because again, that's part of the experience, right? It's not just like a robot. So sometimes it's actually, if you have certain places on your resume, and I'm not saying we've had plenty of people who've worked, at those places who have been fantastic, but that is to me is a flag that I want to test for to make sure that, hey, we're going to have to beat some of the, that's a wrong word to use. We're going to have to retrain you because we're going to have to retrain you to get some of those ideas out of your head. Because just because you did it one way doesn't mean that that's the way that we want to do things here. I will say, another big thing for us too is that we do have a very, I feel very supportive, structure. We want everybody. That's why we have such high standards as well too, because we don't want anybody to feel like they're dragging somebody else along. Because if you have one or two people who aren't doing the same, aren't at the same level as everybody else, now everybody's going to have to learn, right? It takes a little while to get up to that level. But if you don't have them all at the same level, people feel like they're just taking somebody else along for the journey, and that's not fair to the rest of the team, right? So I'm a person who really believes in cutting early if you need to, if the writing is on the wall and just somebody's just not getting it or not clicking, like it's not only fair to them, right? And me as an owner, but it's fair to the team too, right? Because if somebody after like 6 weeks just isn't getting it, like that's going to drag the whole team down. So yeah, those are some of the big things for me, but we tend to be like, we're very not like, I think you don't see that too much in kitchens anymore. The kind of the classic way where the chef would be such a, like a hard ass, because that's not going to fly anymore either, No. So we tend to be very supportive, teach people new techniques. We love having people who come in, like experience is great. And we've had people come in who are experienced, who are freaking fantastic. But also we've taken super young people who are we had a kid, Eli, who works on our line, who I think is 18, 17, maybe when he started, 17, 18, just super passionate about stuff. Doesn't have a lot of knowledge yet, doesn't have a lot of experience yet. But oh my God, he would talk about dishes that he had at Machete when he was 14, when he would come in, right? Oh, yeah. And again, that's where that passion comes in, right? So a lot of it too is organic. You can kind of tell when you're talking to somebody if they're passionate about what you're doing already. But even the way they say it, right? Even their cadence. But he is just a sponge of information. He just loves learning, and he is such a positive influence. I guess that's another thing too. We look for positivity, so we don't have people who are like dour or, are cynical.
Yeah.
too much. We try to avoid that as much as possible. You're never going to get completely no drama in the restaurant industry, or honestly, I shouldn't say that, in any workplace.
Yeah.
But we're there to, again, like I said, like put on a show, like support one another, put on a show, but a very authentic show, and really share our passions about what we're doing with everybody else and make them passionate about it. And I think we do that for the most part.
And you expect your staff to demonstrate passion without 27 pieces of flair?
We only require 22.
Okay. Very last question. Can you give us just a thumbnail sketch of your newest restaurant project, and if there are any plans for a third one?
Sure. Well, I'll start off with are there any plans for the third one? Ideas are never the problem. We have a list of 24 ideas.
Sure.
Those are the easy part. It's the money, and it's the execution, and it's finding the right place. I will tell you what, with Yokai. So we opened up Yokai in we started in 2021 concepting out Yokai, and Yokai is inspired by Japanese izakaya, which are gastropubs. Basically, it's where everybody, let me back up a little bit. Being in the tech industry, I was able to go to Japan and Korea many times over the course of my 20 years doing that. And we would always end up in Japan, in izakayas, which are just, casual, fun, drink, eat places, which is literally what izakaya translates to, a place to eat and drink, and or chicken and beer places in Korea. So as much as I love great elevated food, I also love like everything in between. And those are just the places where you have the most laughs, and you're just hanging out with people, and it's very fun and very casual. So we wanted to bring that kind of style as well, something that Greensboro doesn't have, very many of, to Greensboro. And so, you can kind of pull from everything. So we have Korean fried chicken, we have ramen, we do pork gyoza, we have bao. It's a bunch of like smaller plate, and some larger stuff too with the ramen. Then with great drinks, so Japanese highballs, but also a fantastic cocktail menu, very similar to Machete in the way we're thinking about our builds, but maybe not quite as complex. Because we want Yokai to be, it's not like an Asian Machete whatsoever. It's very lower price point, even more casual. It's a bar. It's a bar I always say that about Machete is our restaurant with great drinks. Yokai is our bar with great food.
Got it.
So that's kind of how I describe it too. So anyway, that concept started around 2021. And just for context, yokai are legendary creatures from Japanese mythology. So we use a lot of like those in our menus and things like that, our branding, because again, they're basically old school Pokemon. Because again, that comes from my video game days too. So it kind of ties into that world. But with that, we started building out in 2022. And opened in 2023 eventually. But right during our build process, that's another great example of how things change. That's when the supply chain got all wonky and crazy again. And our building costs went up 60%. So I'll tell you what. And we did it in 2 phases. So the first phase was pretty much right on budget of what we had. And then our second phase was 60%. And that was a big phase with, you start doing major plumbing and major electrical. That's where your costs really start shooting up. So we took for Machete, like I said, we had an existing restaurant. For Yokai, we took over what used to be a dry cleaner and totally gutted it and went from the ground up on that, because it was a cool space. It was actually my old dry cleaner. And it was 2 blocks away from Machete. Like, it was a great, it was easy for us to be able to, if we had any, people could transfer back and forth if we needed that kind of stuff, ingredient, all that good stuff. Right. So when costs went up 60%, it's like, okay, well, we definitely had some emergency budget, but I didn't realize that an emergency would be before we even opened. It's going well, but it's also the kind of thing where, like, okay, for the next concept, I probably would go back to an existing restaurant footprint, because then you already have your hood, and you have your plumbing in place, and you have your grease trap, and you have, everything that is required, at least for a restaurant, even if you have to do some upgrades, because starting that from the ground up is a heck of a lot more expensive than just taking over an existing building, especially with all the uncertainty and chaos that we've had over the past 5 years.
Yeah, and I my heart breaks every time I see a restaurant space converted into a retail space.
Yeah.
I'm like, it costs so much to bring it back the other direction.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing, I guess, too. Experience, comes knowledge. Like, I had no experience with that, and I was really excited. Don't get me wrong, I'm still very excited about what we did, but it's like just seeing the cost difference between taking an existing space that was already built for a restaurant and then doing a brand new space that didn't have any of that infrastructure already. Now I get it. I understand a little bit better. And sure, you satisfies a lot of, I'm a very creative, like I'm a designer, like, I love color palettes. I love, I do visual art. I'm a musician. I'm a writer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I love designing things, and I love creating myself too. So that was a big passion project, to take something like a completely blank box and be able to do, cool stuff with it. I mean, we have a hot pink walk-in cooler, for God's sake. So, we really leaned into the fun and the pop, and it's sitting that right outside, right in the front. And I was like, we're going to paint that hot pink because, our colors are like really like electric blue and electric yellow and hot pink. And I was like, let's paint the walk-in hot pink. That'll be awesome. Nice. I don't know many restaurants with a hot pink walk-in.
No.
So that design was very cool to be able to do from the ground up. But again, like, I think that if I did another one, just all the stress and the time that it took to do that from the ground up too. I think with the third concept, I think I'm ready to go back to taking over an existing space. But yeah, I mean, we hope to build more and more. I mean, like I said, Chef and I have a lot of ideas on paper already and things that we're excited and passionate about. It's just about, okay, when is going to be the right time to do it, and what's the right space? For us, really finding that right space we learned that with Machete. We looked at a lot of spaces in Greensboro before we landed on Machete. And I'll tell you what, we were close to closing on a couple of them. I don't think neither one are, we probably looked at 5 or 6 or 7, maybe 8 spaces. None would have been good as the existing space that we're in right now. So be patient. That's another just good tip. Be patient. I know you want to get open. Everybody does. But I mean, we've literally started looking for spaces before we even started the pop-ups. So we probably looked for a good 2.5 years. For spaces.
Well, it's incredible that we're just driving through that part of Greensboro, the resurgence, and just from foot traffic and occupied retail spaces and stuff. But it's been unbelievable to see, and I know that y'all are a big, if not the biggest part of that. So
I think that's another thing that I really want to say is that, hey, we have no room for competition in Greensboro. We're what, 320,000 people, and we don't have the restaurant concentration that Durham, Raleigh, or Chapel Hill has, right? So we still have a lot of room to support more restaurants here. So it's been a breath of fresh air coming from a place like San Francisco, where it is very concentrated and it is very competitive in the restaurant scene. Even though I wasn't directly involved, like you said, I was an investor in Lazy Bear, one of the early investors, and I got to know that world a little bit. It is very supportive here, and that's great to have, because I feel like you can ask any restaurateur any questions, and they're willing to share their experience with you. And we just want to encourage just more cool stuff coming into the area, right? The rising tide lifts all ships. I mean, we've said that since the beginning, especially during COVID, would help out people any way we could. And really, the more cool stuff that we have here and the more people get used to that kind of stuff, the better it is for everybody. Because if anything, I would love to change the culture of corporate chain restaurants in Greensboro to more mom and pop, individually owned small business restaurants. And we got some great ones. We got some fantastic ones.
Well, thanks so much for helping me out, for helping our listeners out by being on today. It's been a total pleasure to catch up, man. I really enjoyed it. And I love nothing more than you drinking from a quart container.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brandon. No, this is fantastic. And it was good catching up with you too. It's been a little while. So,
So that was my interview with Tal Blevins from Greensboro, North Carolina. As you can tell, he is an absolute goldmine of actionable information that you can put to use. If you are getting good information, if you are getting positive vibes, if you are enjoying the Restaurant Incubator, please forward this episode to 2 friends who have a bright future in the restaurant industry. Stay humble, stay hungry.